leadership books begin with frameworks. Yours began with a feeling. So please tell us how this happened.
It's very important for us to know in our day-to-day working, what is it that I want to focus on, but equally be clear on what do I not want to focus on.
If you want to hold on to a leadership role, you need to constantly work on your NQ. Otherwise, you can't sustain.
We have an assessment tool. So if you go to the last page in the book, there is a QR code, and if you scan that, it's a 10-minute assessment that you can take. It's a behavioral assessment. So there are about 48 questions. And you answer that, and what you get is a simple 3-page report, which gives you an NQ.
Shiv, for you, how did you approach to nurturing help shape the team culture during those crucial moments?
Nurturing happens at every level. The key thing to nurturing to help through support, encouragement, love for an individual or a team or an institution to grow and reach its potential.
When people feel heard or they feel listened to, they are motivated to think better, to perform better, to feel encouraged.
Suspending judgment, active listening is a very important component of a nurturing leader, number one. Number two, offer guidance, not instructions. You need to appreciate a lot if you want the first aspect of growing people.
So it's a great starting point to say, where am I today on nurturing self and others, which then leads to what do I want to do about it.
Thank you very, very much, Nirupama and Rajesh. Best wishes for your book. I'm so sure it's going to do very, very well, and best wishes for all the people that you're going to be nurturing and continue to do so. This book of yours wasn't, obviously it didn't become in the boardroom. It was a dinner table conversation. You had just wrapped up Nirupama leadership session, and Rajesh was navigating a tough people decision. And I think something in that conversation sparked a realization. Most leadership books begin with frameworks. Yours began with a feeling. So please tell us how this happened. Also, there is a space that you run. Daughters are priceless. Or daughters priceless.
My daughter's precious.
My daughter's precious. Yes. Yes. Please tell us about this.
Thank you, Shibani, and thank you all for being here. Absolutely delighted to see so many people and talking about something very close to our heart. And thanks to Mohit and Friends of Books. The connection started many years ago when we started Friends of Books. I'm very happy to be back here in this space. And thank you, Shiv, for being here as well. So this was an interesting, conversation which we were having about the work we do and all the other things we do as well. As you mentioned, I'm a writer. Many people may not know, but my first 2 books were novels. I've written fiction. We run My Daughter's Precious. We travel a lot. Yoga is important. And I like dabbling in different things. And of course, my work is my passion, which is coaching people, doing leadership development programs. And one of the things we saw was the fact that we do all of these things actually gives us energy to do the work. Now, I love my workshops, but at the end of the day, it can be a little exhausting. Some of you here are facilitators, at the end of the day, you're tired and you need to replenish energy. And when I'm coaching leaders, when I do these workshops, especially in the recent years, I kept hearing, the same refrains. It's a bit of a struggle. How do we lead in the post-pandemic world? There's a lot of stress. Our hybrid model is not working for a lot of people. What do we do with these Gen Zs? I do a lot of work in inclusion. So I actually run a workshop called How to Manage a Multi-Generational Workforce. So the challenges that were coming up during coaching and workshops, where leadership workshops usually start with what are the challenges you face, said there is something happening, and the old models of command and control, the leader as the expert, were not working. And a very powerful new model hadn't yet emerged. So people were talking about things like empathy, vulnerability. So that was the starting point for the discussion around, hey, what can we do around this? And of course, the work that we do with My Daughter's Precious, we provide scholarships and mentorships for young girls to complete their college education. And I have some of the lovely women who are mentors with us, Anjana, Deepika, Geeta, and really support these young women, and we nurture them to become career ready. So that has been very satisfying and also closely related to my work, so they kind of come together. So a lot of things coming together also led to this.
Yeah, hi everybody. And again, once again, thank you so much for being here. So lovely to see many friends here. Thank you, Shiv, and thank you, Mohit, for giving us the opportunity. Yeah, just to build on what Nirupama was saying, I think one was the fact that I've been blessed to have many interests outside of work right from the beginning, and I genuinely believe that's a very, very important thing. So somebody once asked this question saying, if you didn't have your visiting card, who are you? Right? And a lot of us draw identity from our designation, from our title, from the work we do. But can we go beyond that to say, how can we be a more well-rounded, holistic person? And for me, for example, photography is a passion. And I see that that directly feeds into the work that I did as well. And similarly, yoga and many other things. So in a way, having that is something which is very, very important. And the second is, I said, if I write a book, then might as well back a winning horse and write with somebody who's already a celebrated author. So that was a no-brainer from that perspective. But I think, like Nirupama said, COVID sort of accentuated the fact that, during COVID, all meetings, at least 15 minutes used to be spent on how are you doing, how is your family doing, are you guys taking care of yourself, and how are things, before even went to a business conversation, if at all. Right? So COVID really accentuated the need for nurturing, self and others, and I think that sort of made us think that it is a very, very important thing. Can we well a little bit more into it and go deeper? So that's how this whole thing came about.
Thank you for sharing the background of the dinner table conversation, because that's something that's really going to take us forward for a discussion. And what a unique title to the book, the Nurturing Quotient. Also, to pick up on what you said, and I remember having this conversation with you, Rajesh, about how a business card really shapes your identity and how you actually endeavor to change that. That's for a later conversation. But Shiv, for you, you have led massive transformations from Nokia's golden years to PepsiCo's pivot. How did you approach, and since we're talking nurturing quotient, to nurturing help shape the team culture during those crucial moments?
Sorry. Thank you, Shibani. Thank you, Rajesh and Nirupama, for having me here. But before I start, last time, I think 6 months ago, Mohit, or 8 months ago, we did Sundar and Vivek's book here. And I said, I'm bloody jealous. I said, I'm very jealous because I said, they stole my editor, Radhika, and they called me to this to talk about their book, and after stealing my editor. Okay, you are there. Now I'm very jealous that Pavitra and Suchitra, who work for me, okay, didn't bother to turn up at my book launch, but they're here.
That was for a huge applause.
Mohit, can you send them out? Mohit, just send them out, please. Otherwise, I'm going out.
That is why the chaos. Now I get it.
Anyway, so jokes apart. The thing is, what is nurturing? Okay, it is either the individual's ability or the leader's ability or the institutional's ability to help through support, encouragement, love for an individual or a team or an institution to grow and reach its potential. That's what nurturing is in very, very simplistic terms. Okay. Nurturing can happen at an individual level. We do that at an individual level when we are invested in people. It can happen at a team level when we recognize that the team is very, very crucial. Okay. It can happen at a slice level. For example, in PepsiCo, we had the top 300 managers, and Pavitra started that, and then Suchi continued with that, okay, which was called Stay a Leader. Or it can happen in an ecosystem where you are an influence in the ecosystem with other CEOs, and you can help it, okay? So nurturing happens at every level. The key thing to nurturing, what I have found through my career is, if you nurture somebody, you must do it unconditionally. That's a very important aspect. Quite often in today's life, we invest in people with an expectation of a return. That's not nurturing. Okay. If you invest in people without a quid pro quo, then that is true nurturing. Okay. As Jonathan Livingston Seagull said, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it's yours. Otherwise, it was never yours anyway. Okay. So I think that's the approach that leaders should take to nurturing.
I love that you say this, and that's fascinating, Shiv, because in moments of transformation, leaders often focus on strategy and structure, and nurturing, therefore, just seems to have lost its momentum. And thank you for reminding us how deeply culture is shaped by the way people are seen and supported. I thank you for really sharing that with us. Rajesh, coming to you across your leadership roles, how did you balance delivery and development, especially when nurturing wasn't always the easiest or the fastest route?
Yeah, so I think all of us, many of us here have been working in corporates for many years, and there are various demands that come in corporates, and ultimately we are all there to do a job. So we have to grow the business, and we have to take it to a certain place. That's a given, right? I think what comes in the way very often is how do we go about it, right? And I think that's where the difference between a good leader and a great leader comes in terms of their ability to nurture themselves, grow themselves, and nurture others and grow others, so that the work is done in a way which is benefiting the larger good, right? So I think that's the whole approach that I have also taken in my own career. And it's always a balancing act that we do. And in our book, we talk about these paradoxes. How do you balance self-orientation and other orientation? How do you balance ambition and compassion? How do you balance discipline and flexibility? Right? So today is for the leader, it's a world of an and not an or. Right? So let me give you an example. So ambition, there is business ambition. The business needs to go to a certain place. That's what we're all paid to do, and we need to do that. But at the same time, it's also important to realize that the world is a very volatile place. Things can go wrong. We might fall short of our objectives. But are we being kind enough to ourselves? Are we showing self-compassion to ourselves? Are we being kind to our team and saying, yeah, okay, we didn't make it happen. What did we learn from it? How do we move on from there? Right? So I think, like you said, development and this thing go hand in hand. It's an and journey. It's a balance that we need to sort of keep, and that's the whole point of nurturing self and others, so that we are able to embark on that journey.
Thank you. That's quite reassuring, actually, to hear, Rajesh. Nurturing isn't always quick, and it pays off in the long run, as you rightly mentioned. To you, Nirupama, you coach both men and women, but work with women leaders has been particularly transformative. What are the key differences you've seen in how men and women respond to nurturing?
So I'm happy to say that there are two parts to this. One is the stereotypical image of the woman as the nurturing, caring leader. Not to take away the nurturing and caring from women, but I found in my work and in writing the book that nurturing is gender agnostic. Not all women need to be or are demonstrating the qualities of a nurturing leader, and there are a lot of men who can be very caring and very nurturing as well. But the image that we have, and in my book Six Feminine Powers, I know one of the powers is the mother. And when I do workshops and ask, what do you associate with ma, the word that comes is nurturing and caring. So it's very deeply ingrained in us. But I'm happy to say that I have not seen a bias towards this in women or a shying away from this in men. So I think we have to change the narrative to say nurturing is a skill. It's not something that an innate trait that you're born with. Yes, women get more validation. They are expected to be nurturing and caring, but it is, I would say, not an innate trait, but also a skill that can be learned and developed. So, interestingly, a lot of the gardeners, and that's the analogy we use, my own gardener, they're all men, right? Who are nurturing and tending to plants and caring, and the farmers who are sowing the seeds are also doing a lot of nurturing. Though we see it as a soft feminine aspect, but I think it's a very critical leadership skill, which is harder sometimes than some of the hard skills like strategy and, with business acumen. So I'm happy to say, and we'll hopefully, get some results from the assessment, Nurturing Quotient assessment, and we will be able to have real data to see whether gender makes a difference in nurturing self and others. But one of the things I've actually found in the work that I do is women don't nurture themselves as much. They have to make a very intentional effort to do self-care, again, because of social conditioning and some of these aspects. So the leaders we spoke to were very intentional about nurturing, but by and large, it's seen as always something you have to do for others. So those are some of the interesting nuances I've seen in terms of gender and nurturing.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. It lands so well, Nirupama, especially in environments where emotional nuance often gets overlooked, and especially in leadership conversations. Thank you for sharing that. Shiv, I'm on to you. How do you strike a balance between nurturing people's potential and delivering hard results, especially when short-term pressures demand tough calls?
Yeah. So if I were to look at what are nurturing behaviors of leaders, and then you pick which behaviors you believe contribute to the first and which contribute to the second. The first is, I think a good nurturer is an active listener, because quite often this is more Indians. Indians come to judgment very quickly. Before you finish your sentence, they have an answer for you. That's the nature of our debates, that's the nature of our discussions. And that's the nature of parenthood, as an example in India. So I think suspending judgment, active listening, is a very important component of a nurturing leader, number one. Number two, offer guidance, not instructions. Okay, to say, hey, you know what? I think this can be done, up to you. Try it out. Okay, you succeed, great. You fail, nothing lost. Okay, so offer guidance as opposed to offer instructions. That's the second thing I would say. Third is, if you're a good nurturer, you'll provide opportunities for people to help them grow on the softer side. Business will take care of itself if you help people grow and think bigger. That's my personal view. Okay, I think you need to appreciate a lot if you want the first aspect of growing people. Okay, and finally, I would say you cannot be a nurturing leader if you're shy of giving feedback. Okay, a lot of the time, Indian leaders are very scared of giving feedback. Okay, they want to be in the good books of their subordinates or their peer group or their boss. That is the worst thing you can do if you want to nurture somebody. You give very honest and deep feedback to your children. The same philosophy. You want them to improve, give them honest feedback. But tell them, despite this feedback, I back you. I want you to do better. So those are the characteristics, I believe. See, business is always run by a set of metrics and a set of dashboards. Okay, what's revenue, what's margin, what's profitability, what's engagement, etc. Those, almost the whole company is driven towards it. But when you are a nurturing leader, there's no scoreboard. Remember that. There's no scoreboard. I've not seen any scoreboard to say, is this leader a nurturing leader? The answer is no. So in that sense, it is something which is voluntary as a leader. That I am willing to nurture people as opposed to the system has asked me to nurture people. Okay, so that's the difference I would make. It is a personal commitment that you make to people who work with you. The dashboards, everybody takes care.
And I love that you say that, Shiv, because in their book, in the preface, actually, you mentioned that some leader mentioned that listening is a sign of weakness, and I'll say insecurity, because you don't want the person to grow. And thank you for bringing that forward, though you stole my next question already. But thank you, it's a very important thing to say.
I'll come to that. The other challenge we have today on nurturing is, our definition or box of nurturing is people who work with us. Today, thanks to social media, you have tons of people who reach out to you for something or the other. Some encouragement, some help, open this door, open that window, etc. How do you deal with that when you need to nurture people who are not in your orbit, who are not part of your system? Okay, that's a bigger challenge for leaders, especially who are active on social media.
And absolutely rightly said. Would you like to add something to this, Nirupama and Rajesh? Yeah.
And I'm happy to hear that all the behaviors that Shiv has mentioned finds its place in our nurturing leadership network. So glad there is a resonance, and that is true. And in fact, when we also do mentoring, and as I said, for my daughter's Precious, these are not, and we have our mentors who actually spend a lot of time with them, and not for getting any brownie points or not for anything. It's just giving of your time. So that itself is nurturing. In fact, there's interesting research to show that when people feel heard or they feel listened to, they are motivated to think better, to perform better, to feel encouraged. So I think, even if it's not your team members, even across a conversation over coffee, are you curious about the other person? Do you ask questions? Do you listen deeply to them without checking your phone? Itself is a nurturing behavior. And, I'm glad that you brought it up. It's not confined only to our teams, but anybody we engage with and interact with. Simply just maintaining eye contact and having your full presence is a very nurturing quality.
Just to add very briefly to that, I think one point that Shiv mentioned, which is very, very important, is that nurturing is something that comes from within. right? You have to feel it and then you express it, right? So I think that's a very, very important point Shiv got. And I think there are some qualities that we talk about in terms of how to nurture others, which is what we call the hope, right? Which is humility, openness, patience, and empathy, right? So do I have the humility to say, I don't know, I want to learn something, right? Or I made a mistake, right? The openness is about the curiosity. If you are not curious about things, if you are not curious about people, there is no starting point, right? So that becomes very important. Even if I have to nurture somebody, I have to know about them. Where are they coming from? What is their situation at home? And so on and so forth. So then we are able to do something, right? The third is patience. And I think probably one of the most underrated virtues of leaders, because today it's all about quarter-on-quarter results. Am I getting the numbers? Am I able to quickly launch an NPD and so on? But do I have the patience and the wisdom to know when to wait, when to push, so that I'm able to do stuff? And the last one is around empathy. I think everything is about, and COVID again showed us that am I able to put myself in the other person's shoes without necessarily wearing their shoes, right? So it's not like you're carrying the burden of the world, but you're able to empathize with them and support them when they need it, right? So I think these qualities are again something that we talk about in the book as very important for nurturing others.
Yeah, I'd add to that, which is to say, when we nurture, we look at tangible output and outcomes. For example, you could say, these people reported to me, they made it to CXO or CEO, etc. Quite often, you see the trees and the branches. Quite often, the opposite is also true. Like a potato, what you don't see, but the person gets stronger on the journey. I give an example, a personal example here. For example, Mohit. Only 7% of India reads a book. Okay. That man, for the last 2.5 years, has been trying to get people to read and encourage reading through forums like this. Okay. I met him through common friends, etc. Every time, at least I am free, I make myself available for him. It's not that he's profitable yesterday, but I'm hoping in my heart of hearts that one day he will move the needle. One day. Now he's getting stronger and is getting wiser and better through this whole process. And so sometimes it's not about, okay, he's achieved 100 crores revenue. No. I love you, Shiv. It's about the journey, and you need many times, especially, for example, rankers. I used to have a ranker called A.S. Lakshmanan when I was branch manager at Hindustan Lever. It's a bit about nurturing and a bit about legacy. He would always fret about his targets. One of the guys in my career I have the highest admiration for. By the 25th of the month, he'll come and say, Shiv, I'm going to let you down today. I'd say, Lax, what's happened? I said, I'm not going to meet my target. And then I'll make him sit down, grand old man. I had 4 other young MBA ASMs. I'd ask him, Lax, what will you do? He'll say, Shiv, my target is 100, I'll do 99. I said, thank God. Okay. And, we'd have great conversations about his kids, about what things they should be doing. I couldn't make him a better ASM. Okay. One fine day, I had the courage to ask him, Lax, why do you take your target so seriously? He gave me a fantastic answer. He said, Shiv, when you leave this branch as branch manager, I want you to remember me as the person who met the most targets for you. So many times, he was not going to become branch sales manager or branch manager or marketing director. But there are people you help on the way who don't grow in hierarchy the way we classically think of nurturing.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, Shiv. The 7% of reading really breaks my heart, but thank you for doing this for Mohit and for all of us. But more importantly, on the nurturing bit and how you allow or give people that leeway to grow. I have a story on LinkedIn on what Shiv said to me when I recorded him when he was traveling. You must read that. And I just know him as a friend, by the way. I hardly otherwise don't know him. I haven't worked with Shiv. And how I met him is a story that you must read. But coming back, thank you for bringing this up, Shiv. And like I said, he's taken my question even before I answered it, but I'm glad he did because you've covered this beautiful piece on you said hope, I'm saying mile, which is mentor, inspire, listen, and empower. We'll talk about that, but I want to know from you, Rajesh. You've interviewed over 100 leaders for this book. What surprised you the most about how they nurture others or don't?
Yeah, and it was very interesting. We interviewed about 117 CEOs for the book. Shiv was one of them. Thank you, Shiv. And we also, got a good mix of women leaders. So we had about 32 women leaders. And the interesting couple of things that came up was when it came to nurturing self, a lot of leaders were fairly intentional about it, right? So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I go for a walk. Weekends, I play golf. I gym on certain evenings and so on. When it came to nurturing others, there's a little bit of happening on the go, right? So nobody like really said, "Oh, I set aside time." I mean, there were a few. Shiv was one of them. In terms of saying, I set aside certain time to do certain things to nurture others. But it was largely that happened as you went along. And again, if you look at Melle, it was mentoring and coaching, inspiring, listening, empowering. So empowering and inspiring is something that you do on the job, right? So that was an interesting part to see. The other was listening was a bit of a polarized thing. There were some leaders who were very good at listening, and they spoke about listening like they said, humility is the starting point of listening, for example. One leader, Suresh, said that. Yeah. So while there were quite a few leaders who were not that good at listening also, and like you said in the beginning of the conversation, listening sometimes was also seen as a sign of weakness because a leader is expected to know everything. How can a leader ask somebody something, and even on top of it, how can a leader listen to somebody saying something? So I think these were a few interesting things that sort of stood out for me in terms of when it came to nurturing others.
Yeah, I think every conversation was very enriching. So I think we were very lucky that the book was a reason to meet and engage with so many different amazing CEOs and leaders. And each conversation said, "Oh, we could put this in the book." So we collected all these stories, looked for patterns, and that's how these came about. So I think all of them were very enriching. I think a couple of things that stood out was we did go with an assumption that most of leaders are really busy. They are so busy running after the deliverables and the numbers that they may not be intentional or mindful about nurturing themselves. But we were happy to see many of them took the time out. They had their practices. Some of them did it on the go. There was one leader who said, "I haven't taken a vacation in some 7-8 years," but by and large, all of them felt that they needed to replenish energies, and they were very aware that if they didn't do that, they wouldn't bring their best selves to work. So that was a very pleasant surprise in terms of them realizing the importance. And these were not CEOs who spent 30, 35 years, even younger leaders we spoke to. Some of them were even more intentional. Like we spoke to Vinita and Kaushik from Sugar, we spoke to Ayushi who runs Stable Street, we spoke to some of the relatively younger entrepreneurs. All of them were very, very clear that I need my me time, I need to do these things outside of my work, otherwise I won't be able to sustain. So I think that was a pleasant surprise. We hope to hear that, but it was good to get that reinforced and validated as well. And I think the second one, I think not so much of a surprise, but a lot of them did speak about the fourth domain, which we thought wouldn't be so important, which is the spiritual, not the religious part, but really taking time out for self-reflection, having the desire to contribute to a bigger cause, and making sure I'm aligned with my values and I'm living that and helping other people identify and live their purpose. So I think that was also something good, because we think of business as a profit-making institution, but we were happy to see many of them could connect to something bigger. Purpose could be a very meta word, but something larger than just doing a job that gave them energy to do their work as well. So I think that was also interesting.
Great. And just take the mic because the next one. Okay, yeah. Thank you for actually sharing that with us, Nirupama. I must mention before my next question that I had the opportunity to speak with Rajesh when the book was in the making. And my question to him was, why nurturing? And the revelations or the other conversations that we had and what he brought forward was exactly what you mentioned. People haven't taken leave for 7-8 years, and then how do you expect that they will nurture themselves? Which I think by itself is such a big ticket item, or very, very important for our own being. How would you end up nurturing others if you're not nurturing yourself? To you, and you nurture thousands of leaders yourself, Nirupama. What's that one mindset change that instantly needs to be looked at and to become a more nurturing leader?
So I would say we look at nurturing in two parts: nurturing self and nurturing others. So for nurturing self, I think the big mindset shift is to move from self-care is not selfish or self-indulgent to you can't serve from an empty cup. So I think that realization itself is a big shift. That self-care is not a luxury. that taking 1 hour time for myself is not something I'm indulging in, but is very, very necessary for me to perform at my optimum level when I go to work. Everything from nutrition to sleep. I was very happy to say that the narrative is shifting from this highly workaholic CEO who gets 3 hours of sleep a night to people actually saying, and I don't know whether this is the right example, even Elon Musk is changing his stance on sleep. And a lot of people have come out saying it's important. So I think that's the mindset shift, that I need to take care of my energies and time and not wait to get a heart attack at 42. Second, in terms of nurturing others, the big mindset shift is to realize that if others succeed, I succeed. Or my success lies in the success of people around me. And by success, I don't mean necessarily achieving a goal or target, by helping them shine. Right? It's like, in a way, like a parent or a gardener, is just the satisfaction you get from seeing something, though it may not happen. But when that happens, that gives you a lot of joy, and that is your success. Rather than my success is if I reach this level or I reach this particular stage. And realizing that nurturing is not the other shift is nurturing is not a favor you're doing to somebody else, right? It's actually something that gives you as much. Whenever we talk to the mentors who work with us, who don't get paid entirely pro bono, and they come back, and some mentors have been with us for 5-6 years, they say, just the conversations I've had with the other person whom I'm mentoring have enriched and supported me as well. So to look at that as something also that you do for yourself, and in the process, enabling the success of people around you and the ecosystem. So that's the shift. And I think insecure leaders may not see it that way. They see it as, oh my God, how do I keep my job? How do I stay relevant? There is pressure, I might get fired, rather than seeing that my success lies in the success of the ecosystem. So these are the two big shifts that I think would be important. And fortunately, through coaching, we in a way help to bring this realization and help people shift. Because once your mindset shifts, then it's easy to practice behaviors. Then it's relatively, I won't say easy, it's relatively easier to practice some behaviors consistently.
Great, this is lovely, and thank you for bringing it forward. And I'm now going to leave it. Can you hear me? Because I'm going to probably function without a mic, and I think I'm quite loud and shrill. But I'm going to leave it open to the audience for some questions before we get on to our next. Anybody for a question? Yeah. There's this.
So I have an observation on our deliberation so far and a question. In my experience working for MNCs in India and outside of India, I found more nurturing managers in India than outside of India, in the US or UK. So maybe it's just one-off, but I found more nurturing managers in India who really were unconditional in their support to me to grow and to ask me for where I want to go. Whereas I found most of the environment in West Coast very toxic. From startups to young companies to large companies, one of them I can name for you, Oracle, for example. Whereas when I worked for MNCs in India, it was very interesting. There was a lot more space to grow, a very interesting experience. That's my observation. Secondly, you talk to Ma as a metaphor for nurturing. There's another metaphor we find which fulfills our checklist, which is the Guru Shishya Parampara. Any inspiration, I've not read the books, so my apologies. Any inspiration we can take from Guru Shishya Parampara when we look at nurturing our employees and our staff, because that's also a very pure relationship. Just a question for you. Thank you.
So the thing is, at every stage of your career, you need a guru. That's, I think, fundamental. For example, take somebody like Ramcharan. I met him at a general manager's course when I went as a general manager at Unilever in 4 Acres, London. I've known him for 21 years. And we are in touch, etc. The greatness about Ram is that every time I send him a message saying, when are you next in India? He'll send me a schedule and say, Shiv, you figure out when we can have dinner or tea or whatever you want. He landed on 25th. He pinged me on 24th and said, hey, Shiv, I'm making a very short trip to Delhi. I have a window between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock. Can we meet at the Taj Mansingh? I said, Ram, I'm launching my book, sir. At the same time. He said, Shiv, after that, I'm busy. I'm doing some coaching, etc. So whatever you do, I think seek out people who you believe can be good gurus to you. And there are many people out there who are willing to give their time. Equally, yourself, you must give time to people with only one caveat. And that caveat is, if you believe in your heart of hearts that somebody is misusing the time you're giving them or being too over familiar with that, then you pull back. Okay, till that time, I would say invest.
Yeah, just one more maybe, and then I'll go on.
Just one more question. What are the common areas of focus this year when you go and train people or generational difference? How are generations evolving in this? How acceptable are you nurturing? Because the fact that a lot of times it's felt that the new generation knows it all. They think they know it all. So from your context, as you met a lot of CEOs, what was their say?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll answer that and then come to this. Yeah. So, it's very interesting. You asked about the guru relationship and the ma. And when I was doing research for my earlier book, Powerful, I was researching archetypes. And we found that there are actually two distinct archetypes. The mother is seen as the carer. The guru is seen as the wise seeker who imparts wisdom. And hopefully a caring, nurturing guru will have better results than somebody who only relies on his or her knowledge and wisdom. So we felt that, of course, that is a critical relationship, which in a way, when you look at a nurturing behavior of mentoring, that is where the nurturing comes in. So as not just as a teacher who's giving you knowledge, but as a mentor who really is not only giving you knowledge, but is invested in your growth, then you bring an element of nurturing as a guru or a teacher. And does that make sense?
I think Rajesh, because, sorry, I'm going to just go on to the same
Yeah.
question because Rajesh did an entire series of art and photography around the concept of Ma. Has it got any relation to this, or do you want to talk about that later when I talk about photography?
Yeah, maybe we'll.
Yeah. And I'll talk about the younger people. Do they need nurturing? So we have a 24-year-old daughter who's in her second year of working. And she says now she was in another company. She just moved to a newer organization. She works with a nonprofit in New York. And she says, I'm in this job because of my boss. She is amazing. She really cares for me. She's there for me. And she really feels nurtured. And one of the reasons, and therefore I know little bit about what the younger generation in their 20s look for, is actually the opposite of the old command and control leader. They want an rather informal relationship of a mentor rather than a boss. They want a leader who knows when to leave them alone, when to be there for them. So it's not easy. The ask of a leader has become more now. But I have seen personally, with my daughter, with all the young women we mentor as well, who are in their early 20s, that they really want a certain kind of nurturing. And that is what they're looking for. They're actually looking for purpose. They're looking for somebody to tell them the why, not just give them the job. So I would say if you speak to any manager, and in fact, if you look at research which has come out from Deloitte, they say Gen Zs and millennials want an inclusive, empowering work environment. Otherwise, they are not going to remain in that organization.
In fact, just to add one small point to that, the reason why she moved from her first job was because she didn't have a good boss, right? And who was not a nurturing boss. So it was very interesting. Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
Then you have to know that and figure out how to deal with that.
And I'm going to come to a question that I have for the Gen Zs a little later because I'd also want to know from Shiv. But Shiv, this is for you. You write about self-nurturing as a foundation of leadership. What personal practice or habit has been non-negotiable for you over the years? And also because Nirupama was just mentioning about self-nurturing, and the key is to take care of yourself before others.
Yeah. The thing is, as you move up, you have an ambition for yourself, you have an ambition for the team, and you have an ambition for the institution that you work for or you represent. The most important thing you need to recognize about self-nurturing is it is in your hands. Your boss cannot nurture you. If your boss nurtures you, you're lucky. If your company nurtures you, you're double lucky. Okay. I was in a company, Hindustan Lever, through my early stages. I must have been the most trained manager in Hindustan Lever. Okay, most trained manager, trust me. So the HR department, whether it was Mr. Nair, Mr. Dadi Seth, etc., they took great pains to send me to a lot of the training courses. I was really grateful to them and I really benefited from it. So nurturing, when I say nurture, you need to nurture yourself at this current stage. Ask yourself questions ahead for the next 5 years. What will AI do to my industry? Okay, what will AI do to my job? What will AI do to my team? Where can I learn the best practices of AI? Okay, that's how you stay relevant for the future. You do not stay relevant for the future by looking back, which is what most CEOs are doing. Okay, I give you, a nurturing story. I remember 2013-14 when I joined PepsiCo. Deepika Warrior, who was my head of marketing, she had called me to speak to the whole marketing team and the fraternity, about 100 of them, on what I saw of the future of marketing. And I told them then, and I say it, this thing, I said the future of marketing in digital, okay, forget all that you've done. Okay. Now, the moment I said that, I left, I always ask for feedback, how did it go, etc. Rishi Dogra was the head of marketing. He said, Shiv, I loved your speech because you told the truth. Everybody else in the marketing team hated me. Now, each of those guys is building their personal brands on LinkedIn. Okay, so I could say this was the future and please stay relevant because I'd just come off a decade in Nokia. Okay, so I'd seen what was going to happen. So quite often, if you want to nurture yourself, look ahead, don't look back.
I hope they're not building brands thanks to and taking your support. That could be the irony of life. They may be coming back to you, Shiv, on that. Okay, sorry. Okay, so on that, and you led large organizations yourself, Rajesh, and now you are an avid photographer, and you also do sessions and you coach on photography. So, what did becoming a photographer teach you about nurturing, and did that slower lens change your leadership perspective?
Yeah, I think having a passion is very, very important because one of the fundamental things that a passion does is it puts back energy into you. I mean, if you're passionate about photography or music or a sport, when you do that, nothing else matters and it puts a lot of energy back into you, right? So fundamentally, having photography as a passion used to energize me. That's one. I think there are a couple of other huge collateral benefits that I got from photography. So one of them is that what is composition, right? Composition is what you choose to keep in the picture, but equally important, what you choose to leave out of the picture. Right? So similarly, it's very important for us to know in our day-to-day working, what is it that I want to focus on, but equally be clear on what do I not want to focus on, because otherwise you're just diffusing your energy and time, right? So I think that's one of the big things that it taught me. I think the second big thing it taught me was the value of patience, right? When you go to take a picture, firstly, the light has to be in a certain way, the angle has to be right, etc. It's a waiting game, right? And very often you take hundreds of pictures. What the audience sees is that only one picture which came out exactly right? But for that, you need to go through a process. So I think the other big lesson for me was patience. That's something that I learned. And I think the third one is connections, right? If I have to get good pictures, especially portraits, I need to connect with the subject, right? So there has to be a chemistry. Right? And to me, that has helped me in good stead in terms of me being able to build a connect with the teams that I work with and therefore able to nurture myself better by learning from them and nurturing them as well. So I think photography for me has been helped me in many, many ways and I could just go on the topic.
He actually does a workshop on leadership lessons from photography.
Yeah, I know that. That's mentioned in the book as well.
Yeah,
So, yeah. Okay, so I love the way you put it all together and connection, patience most of all. And it also, of course, rounds up to listening because if you're patient, you're listening. Otherwise, it just seems like a weak point, which I was very saddened to hear, but it's true. I mean, to read rather.
Sorry, just add one other point to it, and I don't want to miss that because that's an important thing also. What photography also does is significantly enhances curiosity. And I think curiosity is a big virtue for leaders. If I don't go and say, okay, I don't know that, let me learn that, you will never learn anything new, right? And photography has taken me to places which I would have never gone otherwise. In the middle of Dhaka, into a mosque during Ramadan, just because I wanted to get a perfect shot of something. Or I'm scared of heights, to go on a hot air balloon in Bagan in Burma, because I wanted to capture the temples when the morning sunlight was falling on them, right? So these were all things that I dreamt of. But photography made me take that step and say, let me go there and explore uncharted territories where you're not comfortable going. Sorry, I wanted to add that as
No,
well.
no, of course. It's your book, and it's seeming even more relevant now, the Nurturing Quotient, because the more you're talking about how it's changed you from what you did to what it is now and what you are now, I think this book obviously seems to carry a lot of worth, even actually a lot more than if just one read it and just said, okay, this is what it is, it's English. Okay, so Nirupama, I want to ask you, when leaders themselves are stretched, how can they continue to nurture others without burning out? And that today, it was there, it continues to exist, and it will. So, would like to hear that.
Yeah, you can just get your mic back. So I think, Shivani, that is a perennial question, and I think it's going to be an ongoing challenge. In fact, in the book, we give a very simple model. We call it AISH, because that's what eventually you'd like in your life, some AISH and Aram. That's AISH. A is awareness. First, I think awareness is the most important thing, to know and be aware of when you're facing burnout. Right? And there's a very interesting story. It's real of Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand Prime Minister, who said, "I don't have fuel in my tank anymore, so I'm not able to do this job, which is very, very demanding." So that's an awareness that, hey, but don't wait till you run out of fuel. Be aware that you are running out of fuel. Be aware that there are signs in your organization that people are not happy, they are leaving, things are happening. So I think awareness is the first step. So for that, you have to be aware internally, and you also have to have your ear to the ground and be curious about what's happening. The second is intention. I could be aware, like I'm sure all of us are aware, I need to be healthy, I need to lose weight, I need to stop this, but it doesn't necessarily translate into a strong commitment, which is what we call intentionality, which is there might be 10 things that I'm struggling with, but I want to intentionally pick one or two that are critical for me to nurture myself. Right? Or I need to be therefore knowing these are my energizers, and I do want to start investing in this. For example, I want to start investing in building a coaching culture in my organization because I see people are struggling, or I want to start investing in my own learning. Like Shiv said, I want to start reading about what's happening now, otherwise I will be irrelevant. So set that intentionality to one or two things that you really want to do. The third is S, which is start action. Right? Intentionality is that tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym, tomorrow I will sign up, but you have to actually pay the money and do it, which is what we call starting action. And then, even though you might start action, you might not stay the course. So therefore, habit creation, which is the H, is important. There's lots of literature now, those of you who are familiar, Atomic Habits by James Clear, Charles Duhigg. There are apps now that help you to keep a habit. So I'm learning French on Duolingo, and I'm very excited about it because my Rishika Wise Seeker is always excited about new learning. But I'm amazed at the way AI, gives me a prompt. My Duo looks very unhappy if I don't learn my lesson. I get patted on the back for maintaining a 75-day streak. And it's incredible that I am on a 75-day streak now. I haven't missed a single lesson. And that's habit creation. So I think taking advantage of technology that's available, getting a support, accountability partner, getting some support are all ways in which you can move from awareness into building these into habits. So it's a simple step, but not easy. But we hope it really, sparks that thought about how do I exactly in times of trouble, how do I nurture myself? We always say preventive maintenance is better. So do it earlier rather than later.
So I would say, at any point of time, are you enjoying what you're doing? If you feel in whatever role you're performing, you're not enjoying it, then maybe it's time to call curtains on it. As simple as that. And at any point of time, you have emotional anchors. So when you have a challenge, reach out to those emotional anchors and talk to them and see what they have to say to you about it. Okay? So emotional anchors typically are family. Emotional anchors are typically people you trust the most. Okay. Emotional anchors could be ex-bosses. Emotional anchors could be some colleagues. Okay. So if you do not have emotional anchoring, then you'll not nurture yourself.
Yeah, I like that piece about the emotional anchoring, but after Rajesh. Now we're going to use this one mic. Please, I was trying to figure if there was another, but that's.
No, I was just passing the mic.
Would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think, you said, for me, nurturing, one is the model that she talked about, which is awareness, intention, start action, habit creation. And actually, I would argue that nurturing prevents burnout. So in a way, it's, the question is, how do you, nurture yourself at the cost of, burning out or, stretching yourself? My argument is that it's very important to nurture ourselves so that we don't burn out, right? Because what happens today is the sheer volatility of the environment around us, there is energy that gets sucked out of us, and we need to periodically put back the energy. And that energy needs to be put back in all 4 domains: mind, body, heart, and soul, right? So it's very important. Like when you do something physically, you already see that there is a direct correlation between that and how your emotional state is, right? I come out of a workout in a gym, I feel happy as well, because there is scientific evidence that shows that endorphins kick in, and there is that element of emotional uplift that happens. So I think they are all interconnected. But are we periodically replenishing energy on all 4 domains will actually prevent the burnout from happening.
One way to think about this is what elite athletes go through when they come to that moment to say, I don't want to compete anymore. Okay, take Bjorn Borg. And there's enough video footage of it. Bjorn Borg said, the day I lost to McEnroe, I didn't have the hunger to come back and claim it back as number 1. I'm done, enough. Okay, Sanjay Manjrekar was asked, commentator, when did you realize you had to quit test cricket? Interesting answer. He said, the day I saw Dravid and Ganguly score at Lords, I recognized my days were up. And he said, I decided to leave. Okay, and finally, Roger Federer. I'm a great fan of Federer. He said, look, I took one last shot. I don't think I have the capability to win anymore. So it's not worth competing. So elite athletes, either because physically or mentally, come to that conclusion that I'm not enjoying this anymore.
I'm sorry. I love how this conversation's steering towards so much of, like I said, it's not a leadership framework. This book is not about it. It's so much about feeling. And I'm so glad we're discussing this, yes, and life, and how we need to really nurture ourselves before we go out to do that to others. And on that, can nurturing coexist with ambition? While Shiv has already stated an example, or does one soften the other? And what are the paradoxes or tensions you've observed in high performance environments? And this is for all 3 of you. What did becoming a photographer teach you, a coach teach you, and of course Shiv in his current role and his erstwhile role? So would you want to start, Rajesh?
Sure. I think, like I mentioned, ambition and compassion can totally coexist, nurturing, like you said, because, ultimately we are all there as leaders to run a business, right? So, there are 2 parts to a leader. One is defining the how, the what is the strategy, what is the building blocks, how do we want to go towards that? So that's the what part of it. And then there is a how, which is how do I get a bunch of people, maybe with diverse points of view, to get aligned on a common goal that we want to go after, and how do we make that happen, right? So where nurturing comes in is the how part of it, because the what, even if I don't know how to figure it out, I can get a BCG or a McKinsey or somebody to come and say what I need to do, right? But the how part of it is often where the nurturing comes in. So to that extent, absolutely both can coexist, right? And we all know of something called tough love, right? Which is, yeah, we have to be tough. We have to take those decisions. Those business decisions need to be made. But at the same time, we can do that with a lot of respect, a lot of compassion, and a lot of humility. So I think both can coexist. And like I was mentioning in the beginning, today the world is a world of and these seemingly, dichotomous paradoxes are there. And as a leader, we have to find ways of navigating through them.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, we actually mentioned that in the book, as well as the paradoxes that you need to navigate in order to be a nurturing leader: self and other orientation, discipline versus flexibility, and ambition and compassion. So, I do agree that it is an and ambition also doesn't always have to be in terms of a vertical status or power or money. Ambition can also
Change the metrics ever. Okay, low ambition countries, low ambition teams, low ambition companies go out of business. As simple as that. But if you think about nurturing on one side, nurturing can be individual, it can be collective. Ambition can be individual, it can be collective. Okay. The 2 boxes which always come across in corporate life is individual nurturing, individual ambition. Where do we see signs of it in an organization, and where do we encourage it? We normally tend to do that in succession planning. Okay, when we identify with whatever words we use, we call it a slate, we call it a board, etc., to say who can be the next set of directors, who can be the next CEO, then the system, the board of directors and whoever associated, we invest in that person to make that person successful. Okay. Then there is the collective nurturing and the collective ambition. That I have seen much more in the North European countries. The North European countries of Sweden, Denmark, Finland are much more in that space. But they also have a history because they're hugely socialist. You can retire at age 55 with 65% of your last on salary. Education is free. You have a kid, you get 800 euro. Second kid, you get 1,200 euro. Only for PhD you pay. So the collective system manifests itself to take care of the collective nurturing and the collective ambition. Okay, so succession planning, we do individual, and the collectiveness I've seen only in North European companies.
I have to take this. Thank you, three of you, for bringing this insight to the forefront, because that just takes me to my next question, which is we focus in organizations a lot on IQ and EQ, which also then falls under our conversation so far. I want to know what makes NQ non-negotiable in today's world of burnout and disengagement, and how can we actually observe or measure it in a real world settings? What does high NQ look like in action? You have a framework.
Yeah, so just like IQ, EQ, we have created something called NQ. We have an assessment tool. So if you go to the last page in the book, just on the before the back flap, there is a QR code, and if you scan that, it's a 10-minute assessment that you can take. It's a behavioral assessment. So there are about 48 questions, and you answer that, and what you get is a simple 3-page report, which gives you a NSQ, nurturing self quotient, NOQ, which is a nurturing others quotient, which adds up to an NQ. So it's a great starting point to say, where am I today on nurturing self and others, which then leads to what do I want to do about it. So example, I took the test. I score pretty, when it comes to nurturing self, I'm pretty high on physical, because I do go to the gym, I practice my yoga, I go for my walks. Where I under index is the mental, which is I know I don't read enough, right? And I need to do something about it. There again, what I do is there is an action planning that you can do. So my action plan is I have a reading buddy in my building. So every day, the agreement between us is I'll read for at least 15 minutes and I put a tick on WhatsApp. So that, I not only hold myself accountable, but I'm also accountable to somebody else. So you could find multiple ways. Either you do habit stacking, where you stack a new habit that you want to create against a already existing good habit. So multiple ways in which you can actually work on enhancing one of the 4 dimensions. Similarly, when it comes to nurturing others, you get a score which says, are you doing enough mentoring and coaching? Are you doing enough of inspiring others, and so on? And within that, there are each, has different elements which talk about which one you need to work on. And then at the end of the assessment, there is a menu from which you can select which one you want to work on. So I think EQ, for example, is a subset of a larger NQ. And like I said, NQ has these 2 aspects to it. And I would urge everybody to sort of take the test to know where you stand today, and then therefore what can you do about it.
May I just add that I took the test,
And
we will tell you after this conversation.
I would be very curious to know your results.
Be shocked, because I was.
Which is a good thing, so that motivates you to, yes. And yes, so interestingly, we just did a session for a group, large group for their HR leaders. We just did a session based on the book on Friday, and all of them were like, okay, I knew I wasn't doing something right, but now I know exactly what it is. Right? So sometimes our body gives us those signals, and we may not be fully aware. So I think they say whatever gets measured often gets done. So while we might intuitively know that we're not doing something, seeing something in black and white, I think makes a difference. And it is our wish that more and more people take the assessment, and we will be able to get really valuable data from this. Right? When you take the assessment, please do put in details, nothing intrusive, you won't get any mails. But looking at, does gender make a difference? Does age make a difference? Does the function make a difference? Does the industry make a difference? So we do hope to be able to collect some valuable data from this and then publish a paper that will give us some important pointers, not only for individuals but also organizations, to see where and how they can build a more nurturing culture. So which is why we said, let's not just leave it at a book level, but let's take it further and give people this tool and really bring NQ into the mainstream. I read, I think Daniel Goleman, who is credited with as the father of EQ, has said, IQ gets you hired and EQ gets you promoted. We believe NQ keeps you in that promoted post, right? If you want to hold on to a leadership role, you need to constantly work on your NQ. Otherwise, you can't sustain, both at an individual level and at organizational level. So it's great, you worked, you reach there. How do you stay there? I think that's where the nurturing ability, measured by the nurturing quotient, which is what we call anybody's, not just a leader, anybody's ability to consistently nurture themselves and others, makes a difference.
On a lighter note, barring the short of a stroke that I almost got, I would urge everybody to take the assessment, because it's really an eye opener. And honestly, I'd never done an NQ before this. So yes, Shiv?
Yeah. So I have a different point of view on this, which is, I think the concept of anything to do with nurturing or inclusion, we're seeing extremely strong headwinds right now. Okay. Society is not in a place to accept it. Okay. Companies might do it, leaders might do it. We must thank them. Why do I say that? Okay. Look at the leadership of the top 25 countries today. Countries who matter. What is the language and what's the discourse? It is not nurturing. Now, many people are seeing that and saying, that's the role model I want to be. So where is the nurturing? It cannot happen because your leaders are that, number one. Number two, you look at, and we've seen this data time immemorial for the last 3 years at least that I have tracked it. The nationalism scores are off the charts. I'm proud to be Indian is off the charts, 83% or something. I'm proud to be Turkish is off the charts. I'm proud to be American is off the charts. What does that tell you? It tells you that anybody who's different, I do not accept. I just don't accept it. Full stop. As simple as that. Okay. So I'm not willing to settle for differences. I want to settle for sameness. Okay. Third one, which all of us practice in one way or the other, social media. Okay, social media does not allow you to be yourself. Okay, if you post, you have to first accept that people will say all kinds of things. They are not telling you, for example, Shibani, suppose you post, they're not telling you, Shibani, well done, thank you very much. You don't know, they're attacking you virtually in most times. Okay, so I believe we are flying against very strong headwinds at this point of time. But again, I'm hopeful that things will change. Okay, like all things, I think course correction will happen sooner or later.
So on
No, I was just passing to you.
No, I just want to ask Shiv. So just on to you, Shiv. Since you mentioned this, what is the leadership bit that you're tired of hearing? You've spoken about everything, especially in the context of growth in people, since you mentioned one of that.
So the trouble with being a leader, and there are some people who work for me like Pavitra and Suchitra, etc. The trouble with being a leader is, remember, your subordinates don't need target to throw darts at you. Okay, they can throw any number of darts at you. That is the biggest problem of leadership today. Okay, because you need to justify to yourself and to everybody who works with you that you're worthy of being a leader. That challenge didn't exist when I started. When we saw our leaders in Hindustan Lever, Dr. Ganguly, Sushim Datta, we just accepted them for who they were. Today, nobody accepts you as a leader. Today, you need to prove on a daily basis that you're worthy of their acceptance. That is the biggest challenge for leadership.
Rajesh, I'd like to hear from you as well.
No, I agree. And I think, one of the things that when we were speaking to leaders, we found is that leaders are first human beings, right? So leadership is a 24/7 job. There are stresses so when we talk about what are the challenges that leaders face, there are 4 kinds of challenges. One is, of course, the macroeconomic challenges. One is business challenges. Then there are people challenges. You're working with multi-generational teams and so on and so forth. But there are also personal challenges because a leader is also a husband, is a wife, is a mother, is a daughter, son, and so on, right? So one is to see how do I navigate through these challenges. The second is a leader has to also put up a brave face, right? Because they can't afford to sort of let their mask down. So in many levels, they are grappling with various things. And again, that's why we believe that making sure that you take care of yourself well and take care of others becomes even more important in that context.
Super. So, thank you. And this is going to be my last question before I open it up to the audience because I'm sure everybody's running out of time on the Gen Zs. What are the Gen Zs expecting of leaders today, and how do you nurture a Gen Z? Whoever wishes to start, this is a question which everybody. Do we have any Gen Zs in the house? Okay, yeah. I'm also raising my hand.
Yeah, you go. You're forever Gen Z.
After that NQ, I'm not so sure, but yes.
Yeah, no, we are learning every day. I have a Gen Z daughter. I have a team member who's a Gen Z, so they teach me a lot about what one needs to do. But I said, a lot of times when I was doing workshops, inclusion workshops, it always comes the so-called older leaders, the baby boomers, keep saying Gen Zs are not loyal, they want work-life balance, they are so entitled, etc., etc., etc. Right? But actually what they are asking for is help, and that's my way of decoding this is the world has changed too fast. There's too much pressure, social media, all of that is coming. They would like to believe they know a lot, but deep inside, if you look at the data, you see how much mental health issues they are actually going through, right? I mean, it's not, there's a Deloitte research on millennials which came out which said that mental health issues are the highest. Maybe they were always there, at least now they're being open and talking about it. The world is changing too fast. And, just like you said, you're not necessarily looking up to the leaders. Parents have to prove themselves every day as well. So, in a way, I would like to see it as a call for help. And who can help them? Obviously, people who hopefully have more wisdom and maturity and can bring that to them. So, and again, we can't put all Gen Zs into one bucket. Right? They might be, it's like a bell curve, everything, right? They might be a 20%, 10% who are exactly like that, but there are also plenty of people, and I know I meet a lot of them, through our program as well, young girls who are determined, hardworking, passionate, really keen to make a difference, just looking for some mentor, somebody to guide them and show them the way. Many of them can't talk to their parents, so they are really looking to the workplace to provide some kind of nurturing to them. So if we really take the trouble to listen to them, sure, we'll find a way to manage. And as we said, one of the important qualities in hope is humility. Right? If you ask me, is there a magic formula? I don't know. I'm trying to find out. If anybody's figured out a magic formula to be a parent to a 24-year-old, let me know. Oh, you have. I was going to say, tell me. They're going to say, tell me. Yeah. So I think the same qualities, right? What we mentioned as hope are extremely important. Don't judge them. Don't put them into one basket. Don't expect that just because you put your nose to the grind and went through lots of humiliation and suffering at the hands of a boss 25 years ago, they need to be able to suck it up and do the same. So in fact, we made that mistake when our daughter first came and said, no, they're making me work 12 hours. In my mind, I was like, suck it up. This is what we all did. But obviously that is not going to be whole truth. And that's certainly not something you say. So we are learning, and I'm sure the world is in their hands. And as Shiv said, I would like to be hopeful.
Just one small point I wanted to add as a personal example as well. So I went to Ashoka University for a guest lecture, and one girl came up to me and said, look, I've got a internship with Unilever. Can you give me some gyan on sales and marketing? So I did a deal with her saying that, look, let's catch up once a month on a virtual call, and half an hour we'll spend on me. I'm happy to share my knowledge of sales and marketing with you. And half an hour, you will tell me how a 25-year-old sees the world. Right, so we've been doing that for 1 month. For a few months now, 1 hour a month, right? And it's extremely interesting because, it's like a reverse mentoring where you actually get to learn about how a 25-year-old looks at corporate life, how it looks at life. I learned what is situationship, for example. How do they see the Modi government and what the BJP is doing, and so on and so forth. So I think, again, going back to the hope point, humility to say, I don't know, let me learn. That innate curiosity in us to say, let me figure out what they are thinking and how they are looking at things. And I think if you're able to understand that a lot better, we are able to then also help them a lot better, right? And it then works like a two-way street.
I was wondering why you were looking so stressed. I should have known. Now I know. There's another question to you, Shiv, on that, apart from the one that they've answered, is how does the Gen Z's impatience turn into a leadership advantage?
Okay. So the first thing, since all of us are in this room, historically, for the last 100 years, ever since it's been recorded, ever since it's been researched, every generation thinks that the next generation is a load of rubbish. Full stop. Remember this. Okay. For example, okay, and I've been privy to this. You look at a young teenage girl looking at the marriage pictures of her parents. Say, Mom, you look so ugly. Would you ever say that to your mother? The answer is no, but they will say it. In my last company, I had about 12, 15 chartered accountants. We hired them as industrial trainees. And these guys who are what? In the age bracket 18 to 23. One of the guys, Jatin, I have a lot of respect for him, a fantastic guy. Every day he would come into office. If he saw me in the corridor, he'll say, "Morning, bro, how are you?" Okay, absolutely. So the codes of every generation are different. And the codes are manifested in hairstyle, clothes, appearance, language. And you have to understand that, number one. So if you look at Gen Z today, they do not trust my gray hair. Okay, to them, gray hair is you spent 25 years in the same job, you wasted your life. You wasted your life. So you have to be relevant to them. Only if you're relevant to them, do they accept you. So today's generation has immense confidence. You have to give it to them. They're articulate in their own way. They're tech savvy. And they have many choices. But more important, they have the freedom to make the choice, which 20 years ago, most people in this room did not have the freedom. Okay, you couldn't disagree with your boss and get out of that company. Today, they'll disagree and next moment they're off. Okay, that's one. So I work with a company called Tally and I coach their owners, Nupur and Tejas. They're in their late 20s, wonderful young people. So we are doing an exercise on employee value proposition. So we are discussing, if we had 100 rupees, how would the various levels look at 100 rupees as salary? When we went to the topmost management team layer, they split that into medical, education, 60 rupees as salary. The rest they wanted children's education and care for their parents. When we went down the pop strata of the company, all the young people, all the millennials, etc., they said 100 rupees cash. Okay, so now when you work in an organization, you have to realize that priorities change with life. Okay, so that's the challenge for leadership, to accept people, their behavior, their language, their code, if you want them to be part of you. My last story, we hired a millennial, a young marketing guy, I won't name the company, into a role on Friday morning. Okay, so his manager, like we all do, like HR people do, his manager bought a cake, he bought flowers, he or she cut the thing, etc., fed him, all that rubbish we did. Okay. Now, Monday morning, the fellow didn't land up at work. He didn't land up at work. His boss is desperately calling him. Guy is not picking up the phone. At 1 o'clock, he responds, saying, "I'm not joining you." He spent 1 day with us, Friday. Digital marketer in Bangalore. 1 day. So this guy asked him, "Yeah, but you just joined on Friday. Why aren't you coming?" You know what his answer was? "I didn't feel welcomed enough on Friday. You didn't welcome me well enough." Now, what do you say to that? Not at all. So, what do you say to somebody who says, "I was not welcomed in your office"? You can do nothing. So we said thank you, and then he moved on. He got another job.
Did you do an Instagram reel instead of cutting the cake? That's why,
maybe, yeah, correct.
That's why he was not welcome.
Tell Pavitra. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much. I have a story to add to this in many, because I'm dealing not just for the Gen Z but two at home. And I've never felt more useless than when I do when I'm speaking with them. Otherwise, I just feel I'm on top of the world. Thank you for sharing this. Any questions from the audience? Okay, we'll take one question and then we'll close. And if you have any questions, please feel free to speak to the author and Shiv. And I'm sure they'll be happy to answer your questions, and please buy books and get them signed.
Hello. So my question is, what are some practical ways to build self-compassion without appearing too soft and unprofessional? So being a Gen Z, we had this thing like we rant and we get empathetic easily. So if we want to have that self-compassion as it's a big part of nurturing quotient, so how we can maintain it just by being professional and not to being too soft?
We'll do a coaching session on this. Asha, I will talk to you. Yes. No, she works with me. So we will. I need to be more nurturing. So I think the great thing is that this generation is using word self-compassion in the first place. I got to know about this animal called self-compassion much later on in life. So yes. So I think again I would go back to the same thing. Be aware first and then ask for help proactively. Reach out to people, build your inner support circle. It can be very isolating, even though social media keeps throwing so many things at you. So you need to have a support circle that is there for you, that is nurturing, that can also push you, not just the soft, nice, but can also, give you a proverbial kick in the butt if you need it. You need that kind of circle. If it doesn't happen, you need to be proactive. In fact, not just at a Gen Z level, a lot of the leaders we spoke to said, I have my personal board of directors. I'm sure, Shiv, you're in many personal board of directors for people. So you can reach out, call them, get some inputs, bounce off ideas. So all of these are things that you can start doing as a way of nurturing self and giving yourself some compassion and love.
Any questions? Okay, thank you so much. I'm suddenly feeling overtly nurtured, but thank you very much. This book is beautiful. The assessment is great. Like I said, short of a stroke, everything worked for me, which means nothing. Please try it, and you will know where you stand. Because trust me, when you do that, you will know. While you may have thought you're a king or a queen, this will really bring you to the bottom. Thank you very, very much. Shiv, I have to thank you again for doing this for us, and congratulations on your book. I was waiting for this because this is very, very important. If you haven't picked up his book, it isn't here today. And Mohit hasn't arranged for it, so he's the one to blame. But yes, you must get this book. It is brilliant. Shiv, you want to say a few words about it? Okay, he's just very kind, but it's a great book. Please pick it up, and you will please read the LinkedIn story that I'm talking about, because he is truly a nurturer. Thank you very, very much, Nirupama and Rajesh, for considering me worthy of this conversation, and best wishes for your book. I'm so sure it's going to do very, very well, and best wishes for all the people that you're going to be nurturing and continue to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I'll just take English here because otherwise